welcome to the Unprofessionals podcast. I'm Joshua Sutter, and I am joined by Nathan Page and David Elrod. We are here in the suburbs of Atlanta and in Manhattan, New York, respectively, and we are here to talk about the NBA All-Star Game and some midseason awards. We are represented unofficially by the Mobile Hop-In off of Arnold Mill and Trickham Road. As Nathan would say, is the home of the Big Tex and the Starbucks Frappuccino. And Nathan, would you like to take it from here?
We're going to go ahead and get started. Obviously, Friday night, they've got the Celebrity All-Star Game, the Rising Star Challenge. Saturday, they're doing something new in the afternoon, the D-League All-Star Game. Then that night, we've got the Shooting Stars Challenge, then the Skills Challenge, and then the three-point contest and the dunk contest. And then Sunday night, of course, it all comes down to the All-Star Game in Toronto. So I know David had a couple things he wanted to touch on as far as like specific things within the weekend. David, what were some of the things you're looking forward to, or some of the things you're looking back on with that?
Well, I guess a few things. One is what's going to happen with Kevin Hart in the Celebrity All-Star Game?
That is the question.
Because it's a good question, I think, because for, I would say, a few years, he had a dynasty going. And this may hold true as, I don't know, a slight metaphor to his career, but right along too. But last year, he got worked. Let's face it, like Arnie Duncan went to work on him. And so I just wonder, like, what's going to go on? Like, is he going to be back to where he was? Is he out? Is some new guy going to come in? I'm kind of interested in that.
You almost wonder if the Minister of Education is going to take him to school.
Hey,
Oh.
Well played, sir. Well played. And you got to wonder if the long lost son of Michael Jordan, Michael B. Jordan, is going to show out again. I know that you just never know, man. Kevin Hart, he is the enigma of the Celebrity All-Star Game. He is the face of it, and also maybe the worst thing about it. So he is the Boogie Cousins, maybe, of the All-Star Game. Is that fair? Is that right? Maybe Kobe Bryant? Is he the Kobe Bryant?
That's giving him way too much credit.
He's not that good.
Is he the you know what? The next person that David wanted to talk about, is he the J.R. Smith?
Yes.
Well, I was going to say maybe like Michael Beasley, but I think J.R. Smith is probably a closer comparison. Because he is funny. And on that note, I would say looking forward, I guess. Well, no, we'll stay with Friday. After the Celebrity All-Star Game, you have the Rising Stars Challenge. And can we take a second to memorialize, what was it, 2013? Kyrie versus Brandon Knight.
Yep.
Oh, man.
It was much better than, what was it? The next year, the big matchup was Tim Hardaway Jr. against Deion Waiters. They both went for like 40. So we'll see those two comparatively.
Look, if there's a role – exactly. Look, if there's a role that I never want to play, it's Brandon Knight's ankles.
So walk through it for those who don't remember, like maybe Josh.
Okay, so let's paint a little picture here. You're dribbling the ball up, right? Or no, let's change it up. So you're defending the guy. The guy's dribbling the ball up and gets a little bit across half court. Kind of looks around the court, tries to decide, okay, who needs to go off? No, it's going to be me. This is my moment. I'm taking it over. Looks at you, makes some deep eye contact here.
Intimate.
And just, starts kind of messing around with the ball, dribbling through his legs, behind his back. You know how Kyrie is.
Right.
Pulls an in and out with his right hand, crosses over to his left, and you're thinking, oh, I got this. I've seen this move way too many times before. People try right all the time I pick up, and it never fools me. I'm going to jump, and I'm going to get the ball, steal. This is a big highlight for me. Steps back, you fall on your knees, drains the jumper in your face. I mean, did that go the way you thought it was going to go?
That was very audibly emotional, actually.
Yeah, it did not go the way I was expecting. If I'm the man guarding him in this scenario, so Brandon Knight got busted up by Kyrie, basically is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, good. All right. So, yeah, we do remember that one. And then you had a bold statement you wanted to make about J.R. Smith in the three-point shootout.
I mean, I'm not going to say – maybe I'm a homer, and I do on some level of my existence want J.R. Smith back on the Knicks. But I'm not going to say that he is the best shooter in the league. I think that would be ridiculous. But in terms of who I want to see in the three-point contest, he's in the top 3.
Just because of his streakiness, or do you think he could win the contest?
Yes. Sheer stroke, I think he could win. I mean, last year on the Knicks? Yeah, first half of last year on the Knicks, he dropped like 13 threes in a game.
Yeah, I mean, he has the ability from just, I mean, because that contest is really not even, I would say it's not an accurate picture of like if you're a good shooter or not, because it doesn't, you don't naturally in the point of a game like pick up a ball and shoot it. Not usually like that. So I could see him, just because of how streaky he is. I mean, he could hit 15 in a row and he'd be like, what the heck? Like, you're not actually that good, but because he's that streaky, I could definitely see that happening. So
Exactly.
I mean, is he a candidate to be in it this year? Or are you just saying this is a desire of yours?
I'd argue that this is a whim of mine. Yeah, a desire, which is unfortunate because, I mean, like I said, I think he could win, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right. Okay, so let's zoom out. We'll get back into some of the events. But for you, Josh, like, what's big picture? What is the like the All-Star weekend? What does that hold for the NBA? What value does it add?
For me personally, the value that it adds now as a 20-year-old as opposed to when I was 12, it was just cool to see players from the West, because I'd never stayed up late enough to watch games in the West. But now, with NBA League Pass and all that stuff, that's not really a problem anymore. So for me, All-Star Weekend, the value that it holds is making me want more. And by that, I mean, it makes me want a different style to All-Star Weekend, because obviously in the NFL and NHL, it's kind of difficult to do more than just play a normal game. But in the NBA, it's so easy because basketball is such a diverse sport. So for me, I know one of the things we were going to cover was like one-on-one tournaments and one-on-one games. And obviously, this could probably never happen in a realistic setting during the season, to where players are actually going all out against each other. Perhaps in the off season, you always hear stories of players playing each other in pickup games in an empty gym or whatever, when there's like, one other person there. And it's like this mysterious event that occurred that you wish you could have seen.
Like the Drew League out in LA?
Well, you can go see that, but I'm just talking like when players train together and stuff. Like you hear LeBron training with guys and like, oh, they had a game of one-on-one. And it's like, okay, so who won? And so for me, I think that would be the thing that All-Star Weekend would actually mean something to me, because right now it means absolutely nothing.
So do you think right now you're saying it doesn't really hold value other than longing for what it could be?
Yeah, exactly.
David, what about you? Does it hold any value for you? Do you think it holds any value to the NBA?
Well, looking at All-Star Weekend, it's hard for me to not see it. I guess as a movie person, it's hard to not see it in terms of narrative, where you could, and I guess like you could argue that one of the main reasons that it even exists in the first place, and for most people this holds true, that it's purely for spectacle, that you go to it in the same way that you go to a summer movie. You watch it and you're like, oh man, I want to see Brandon Knight's ankles get wrecked. Like I want to see the dunk contest, or I mean that's the whole point of a dunk contest. Like the dunk contest is probably the most accurate depiction of that.
Right.
But for me, I can't help but see it in terms of narrative, and it's interesting every year to see how players use it. For example, this is what gave him a really bad rap last year. But last year, Melo, he struggled heavily at the beginning of the year, all the way up until All-Star break. And then plays in the All-Star game, and rightfully so, I would say, because we can all agree here that Melo is worthy of playing in the All-Star game. But he plays horribly. I mean, what did he make? Like 3 shots in the whole All-Star game? Took like 10.
Yeah, let me look that up. But yeah, I mean, he did not play well. He was injured, but
yeah, he shot horribly, and it was kind of pathetic to see. It was like watching a dog die, and then like literally 2 days later, it gets surgery and is out for the season. And like you can't convince me that you didn't wait for that. And okay, that makes sense because to some degree it is spectacle. Like he wanted to be a part of the spectacle. But the fact that he wanted to be a part of the spectacle is the narrative. And so to me, All-Star weekend at least, and like the time surrounding it, especially since Adam Silver's come along and the break has gotten bigger, the narrative surrounding it is interesting. But
yeah, well, it is interesting. Like, and for what it's worth, wow, I don't know what just happened there. For what it's worth, he went 6 for 20, 14 points in that game. So yeah, he did not have a good game. But I agree with you that it's interesting just because you think about someone like Russell Westbrook, who last year he won the MVP for that game, and that was almost a narrative-changing thing. I don't know, it kind of perfectly encapsulated.
It was a culmination for him.
Yeah, I mean, because he had a great game, and there's been this narrative for him of being almost a distraction from good basketball when it comes to OKC Thunder. Like he is the interruption in KD's game. He's the interruption in KD's narrative, which is to be the best scorer in the league right now. And now Russell Westbrook, a lot of people say he's not as good as he thinks he is, but he storms in and takes away from
he's the rambunctious little brother that doesn't know his place.
Exactly. But then that's a great way to describe it. But then he comes into the All-Star weekend and shows up and shows out. And he was the most electric player on the court with everybody there, not just KD. So, it really is an interesting way to look at it in terms of narrative. But thinking about, okay, so Josh mentioned, what we wish it was over what it actually is. And I wrote some ideas, and some of them good, some of them bad. But one of the ones I actually heard Jeff Van Gundy mention in one of the NBA broadcasts that I thought it was an interesting idea, so we kind of took it and ran with it. What if? I mean, how much would you guys love to see like a one-on-one basketball tournament on All-Star weekend? So some of the people we wrote down, like, I don't know, I guess were there any of the matchups that you saw, Josh, like in the one-on-one tournament that you're interested in seeing?
Yeah, specifically the Steph and Russ one was one that intrigued me. Obviously, all of them are pretty interesting, but the Steph and Russ one is fascinating to me because 30-second breakdown. Russ is obviously more physically imposing, but Steph can make just about any shot that anyone challenges him with. So that would just be incredibly fascinating to watch the physicality of Russ against the shot-making ability of Steph, because in the past, I feel like in this type of matchup, I would pick the more physically talented individual, but in this case, it's kind of hard to do anything, even if you're physically impeccable against Steph, because he's just going to throw it up and make it half of the time. So that one is the most fascinating to me.
Right. So, I mean, I guess we would just for the sake of going along with this whole fake idea of what All-Star Weekend could be, let's say it's like the Saturday night weekend before they do the dunk contest, or maybe it's the feature event. I feel like if they did it, it'd be huge. But you set up like a 16-man tournament. You do 8 rounds? I mean, it's just like 8 games. Sorry, it would be 4 rounds. I don't know what I'm. So, I mean, you set it up like you do the playoffs. You do first man to 11, ones and twos. I think that's what basketball is about. It's about pride. It's about one-on-one. That's how we measure guys. Like, why would we not, and why would they not want to do it? I mean, I just think that would be such a fascinating thing when we do these things like the Shooting Stars Challenge, which is like somewhat entertaining, but it's like, I don't care about somebody, taking a layup and then a foul shot and then a half goal. Like, it's just not, to me, that seems like we're spinning our wheels and just trying to get advertising dollars. So, I mean, I think you take something like a one-on-one tournament and that adds real value to the weekend. David, I don't know. What are your thoughts on something like that on one of the matchups? Is that interesting to you?
It definitely is. I instantly want to kind of push back and see problems with it in the sense that, like, you look at, I don't know if it's the perfect comparison, but like USA basketball, Paul George breaks his leg. I don't know exactly how. And granted, right before that happened, which it really sucked, but like right before that happened, the video came out of, who was it? Paul George, KD, and I don't remember who the third was. Harden, playing one-on-one. And everyone was like, oh man, this is amazing, like, why haven't we seen this before? This is like, I love this. And then of course, like, the Paul George thing happens, it totally gets overshadowed. But now, like, I don't know that players would agree to that. I would like to think that they would. I would love to see it. I mean, you're right. There's nothing that basketball is more about, at least to the everyman, than one-on-one. Because you go to LA Fitness and you find somebody and you're like, oh yeah, I can beat them. And then you play one-on-one. Like, that's the way that you play growing up. So for other people to see that on like a superhuman level, like watching Russ, like, that's exciting. And like, I'm all for it, but I don't know that players would agree to it. And of course the league, like, as much as I'm optimistic about Adam Silver, and his direction that he's taking the NBA, I can't help but think that along the same lines of jerseys having advertisements soon, that he's not looking for money.
Right. Yeah, and I'm with you that it's not really super realistic, because I think the other people we're leaving out is the owners. I don't think the owners sign up for it because of the Paul George thing. Right. Even if someone like Russ, because I think that's the kind of thing, like Russ has said, he'll never do. That's the person we keep using as an example. He'll never do a dunk contest because he only dunks on people, which is awesome. Like, that's what you want to hear. So I could see him being like, yeah, I want to play Steph. Yeah, I want to play Chris Paul. Yeah, I want to play Dame Lillard. But I could also see the Thunder own. Like, I know that. Mark Cuban is very outspoken against like mid-season tournaments because like you're putting your investment through more than they like. He's against doing like the Olympics. He's like, the Olympics in the United States don't pay me for my player. I pay my player. So just things like that, I could definitely see owners being like, okay, this is my investment. I don't want to put more stress on them than I pay them for. So yeah, I could definitely see how logically and realistically there's problems with it, but man, that would be fun to watch. And then one matchup, and it would have been better 5 years ago, but like Paul Pierce versus LeBron, the Paul Pierce-LeBron rivalry would have been great. Even though, like, obviously LeBron is more of a specimen, but it's similar to the Russ Steph thing, in that Paul Pierce just always went off against LeBron. So, anyways, moving on, we'll get down into the reality of the All-Star game. The starters were announced Thursday night. So for the Eastern Conference, we've got two guards are Dwayne Wade and Kyle Lowry. That's the 12th for Dwayne Wade, the 2nd for Kyle Lowry. LeBron got his 12th All-Star appearance. Paul George with his 3rd. Carmelo Anthony with his 9th. Should we go ahead and run through the Western Conference, or do we want to talk about the Eastern Conference and move on?
Let's run through the West, and then we'll
go back and talk about all. Okay. The two guards for the West are none other than Steph Curry and Russell Westbrook. And the front court is Kevin Durant, Kobe, Kawhi Leonard. And that's the 3rd for Steph, 5th for Russ, 7th for KD. Wow, that's insane. 7th for him. Kobe, that's 18. And then Kawhi, it's his first All-Star game. And it should be noted, it's funny, Kawhi has already won a Finals MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award. And now he's getting his first All-Star appearance. So his career is a little backwards. But all right, so what do we think about this? First question with this, do we wish that they had stuck with traditional positions instead of going positionless for the All-Star game.
I guess my answer would kind of be the follow-up question to that, and that it does frustrate me that, for instance, in the East, Carmelo is starting over Andre Drummond because Drummond's having a ridiculous year, but it's kind of like a little, I guess, like career thing for Carmelo because he got back to being pretty good this year. But it's just frustrating because if you realistically look at that and you say, okay, small ball is a thing of the NBA now, great. Is Carmelo really realistically a small ball 5? And I just don't really see that at all. So if you're going to do the small ball thing, at least make it semi-realistic. Same thing in the West. Like Kawhi can obviously play a small ball 4, but is he really going to play the 5 in a small ball lineup? And is Kobe really going to play the 4? So I get kind of transitioning the All-Star lineups to be more like the NBA and reflective of the evolution of basketball or whatever. But I'd like it to be somewhat realistic, and putting Kawhi and Carmelo at the 5 just isn't that realistic to me personally.
Right. David, what about you? What do you think of, what do you make of the All-Star selections?
Well, they're not going to be realistic. I mean, I think I would push back against that. The All-Star games have never been realistic. And if they were realistic, then Dwayne Wade wouldn't be on there. Reggie Jackson would be on there. I don't think that Dwayne Wade deserves an All-Star starting spot in the East this year in the backcourt, but, here we are. And
if let's be realistic, just to interject there, like it should be Jimmy Butler and probably either Andre Drummond or Reggie Jackson in the East, and then instead of Dwayne Wade and Carmelo, and in the West, instead of Kobe, it should probably be Draymond.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't think any of us would disagree with that.
So, no, they're not realistic. And that's okay. I mean, the point is, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. The point of the All-Star weekend is spectacle for most people, despite the fact that I probably like to look at it as narrative more. It's spectacle for most people. And to have these people that you kind of grew up with and that, most people, especially people that don't know that much about the NBA or they don't keep up with the NBA like they used to, they're still going to say like, oh, is Kobe still good? Or like, and that's where like the narrative pushes back and they kind of like hear, oh, apparently Kobe's like, costing $30 million a year and he's not very good. But for the majority of people that don't hear that narrative, they think, oh, well, Kobe's still good or Dwayne, of course Dwayne Wade needs to be in the All-Star game. But if you're really paying attention to stats and I mean this year for that matter, because a lot of new things came about this year that we didn't really see coming, like Draymond pulling the closest thing to an Oscar Robertson that we've seen in a while, and factor all those things in. And of course, like you would look at this and say, like, no, we shouldn't have Dwayne Wade. But I don't mind it too much. I don't really mind having D Wade in there or having the biggest example here is Kobe versus Draymond, and that's the perfect way to frame that because Kobe is for every reason that we respect him for it. The guy who holds the ball and the guy who says, I'm going to score because I don't trust anyone else to. And, that's like the bridge between Showtime and now. And, for Draymond, it's you're a sinner now. That was never supposed to happen. And yet here we are, like you are the perfect personnel to make this team run, along with Steph Curry, of course. And, the like epitome of new age in basketball. Mm-hmm. But like as far as spectacle goes, like people want to see Kobe and people want to see Dwayne Wade. And that's cool with me.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that if you definitely take a deep look at what the All-Star game is really built for, you'll find exactly what you talked about, David, in that it's basically just built for spectacle. And that's the way fans vote for it. It's not built to be this accurate depiction of how the NBA hierarchy is actually performing at the moment as far as the West and the East and how the different players are playing in their positions. It's built to be an entertainment event. And you could argue that that's what it should be for. I mean, it's the All-Star game, right? There's the dunk contest, the 3-point shootout, some of the other stuff that isn't really that entertaining, but it's built for entertainment. That's what they want it to be. When the All-NBA teams come out at the end of the year, I guess that's the little bone they throw to people like us who are really interested in what the true basketball fan really believes and judges, and what the writers think and what everyone thinks are the top 5 players in the NBA at each position. And okay, if you have the top 5, is he good enough to make the second team, and so on and so forth till the third team. So I think you're definitely right. We have to keep that in perspective when judging the All-Star lineups and really just perceiving how the All-Star game is constructed and who the fans vote in versus who we believe should be voted in.
It is like this weird transition, which is kind of a cool representation of the game, like between Kobe and Draymond. But the thing I do like about having, because basically in the East, this is the 2003 draft. Like, you got Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, and then Chris Bosh is probably going to be. Yeah, but think about it. Like, this could be the last time all of these guys are actually all-star caliber players at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's like the last time we're probably going to see Kobe against LeBron in an All-Star game.
Right, and those two. I mean, how many years was it in a row? Probably between 2006 and 2012, 2011, when he and Kobe were always going back and forth. MVPs, scoring, whatever. It was always about those two. So it is cool. While maybe if we're measuring players' legacies, it's not fair from the standpoint of like Draymond Green or Andre Drummond. That's where it's not cool. But what I do like about it is that this is going to be the last time we see all of these guys play at the same time, because it is Paul George's game now. It is Jimmy Butler's game. It is Draymond's game. So, I mean, they're going to, barring, horrific unforeseen injury, these guys are going to be the future of the NBA. They're going to be in the All-Star game next year. So that's what I do like about it, is we get a chance to see these guys one more time, and a venue that is about, for all the narrative that automatically comes with it, like David said already, it is about spectacle in a lot of ways. So I do appreciate that. But going back to the question Josh posed, problems with the starters, and I guess people that we would like to see that aren't going to be in it. And with the Drummond thing, he's averaging 17 and 15. I was just looking it up and reading about it. Only 3 other players have done that in the last 33 years. So, I mean, he deserves to be in over probably 3 of the guys, maybe 3 of the guys, two guys at least. But yeah, as far as guys that aren't going to be in it, Drummond is obviously number 1 as far as starters go. But guys who may not even play on the weekend, I'm thinking of guys like Dirk. He's averaging 17 and 8, so his numbers aren't insane. But to be he is the reason that the Mavericks are a playoff team right now. And I know that they've built something special there as a team, but it's all built around Dirk, even though he's 38 years old. I would love to see him play in the All-Star game for the same reasons that we just talked about with Kobe and those guys from 2003. Just seeing him play one more game at this level would be a blast. And then some other guys I mentioned, like Blake Griffin and Damian Lillard might end up on the roster. I'm just not sure. It depends on if there's enough spots, if the coaches pick them. And then LaMarcus Aldridge and Anthony Davis are 2 other guys. Anthony Davis, a lot of people just don't think that his team has had enough success, even though his numbers are astounding, to give him a chance. I know he had a rough start, but I'd love to see him play. Because, I mean, we talk about the future versus the past. He is the future of the NBA. So, anyways, that's it for me as far as who I was hoping to see, but that may not even end up playing this weekend or that weekend. David, do you have anybody else that you were hoping to see play for All-Star Weekend that may not end up playing, starters or reserves?
I mean, I think you touched on a few of them. I don't know that I would argue for Dirk. I guess it depends on how you view what I was saying earlier, which is, the spectacle versus narrative. I mean, obviously Anthony Davis, of course. Lillard is having a really good year. No one really knows about it because 4 of his starters left in the offseason. Right. So, which is unfortunate. And he's never really been particularly exciting to the common man outside of hitting that shot against, Houston? Which kind of cemented his legend as ice cold in the fourth quarter. But But yeah, I mean, I'd argue for him too. Of course, Blake, and he's not healthy, but not even sure if he would. But of course, Blake. Now, I liked something that you said. You said that you were talking about how it is bridging the gap, but to some degree, the argument for getting Draymond into the All-Star game is an argument, one, about stats, but two, about the erasure of a narrative, in the sense that there's no real narrative around Draymond to most people. Of course, we know the narrative is that no one really thought he was anything at Michigan State, and really, for that matter, no one thought that a 6'8", 6'7", 6'8" power forward, and at this point center, would be any good. I mean, come on, put him up against. I mean, I remember a quote. It was 2 years ago, talking about USA basketball, and they were scheming as to whether or not they were going to put LeBron at the 5. And LeBron was like, "Are you kidding me? Me going up against Dwight Howard?" And now, we're putting Draymond there, who's shorter than him. And granted, I mean longer, but still, it's there is a narrative surrounding Draymond, sure, but most people don't know that.
Right.
And so, for that matter, saying Draymond needs to be in the All-Star game is an argument more about stats than it is anything else, because he honestly, he's new. He's the future, but never the past.
That's true. Yeah.
Where Kobe is absolutely not the future. It's the exact opposite. So you could argue that it's narrative why Kobe should be in, and why narrative that Draymond should be in, but I would say that's an interesting juxtaposition to me. I mean, as far as who actually is going to be in it, I mean, I look at it again more as narrative than I do as a spectacle. So seeing Kobe in it is fine. I'm not going to be upset by that. It's just interesting to kind of look at that juxtaposition.
Definitely. Well, and one more thing before we move on with that Draymond thing. I mean, it is incredible what he's doing. And people who pay attention and who read enough and basically people who are as nerdy as we are about basketball understand that Draymond right now is a top 10 player. If you were making a starting 5 in the NBA, he would be in it.
Absolutely.
I don't care what position you put him at. You put up 3, 4, and 5, and he deserves to be in it. And so that's one thing. And it's funny to see that it's someone like Anthony Davis being on the brink of not being in. He could possibly not make it just because of how his year started out. And now obviously he has the numbers that make it look like he should be in. But his year hasn't started right, and he is I don't know, he's the opposite of Draymond in that coming into the NBA, it was a no-brainer. He's the future. He's this tall, 6'10", slender, can do it all, power forward. And Draymond's kind of the opposite. He's built like a overweight 3 who can do everything, though. I mean, he's the ultimate team player in that respect. And so it is cool to see those things shake out.
That was well said. And I guess we'll move on to midseason awards. And starting off, I'll begin with MVP. I really don't see a way this can't be Steph, except the obvious, if he gets hurt for an extended period of time, then we definitely have to consider Kawhi, and honorable mention to Paul George, just because of his incredible comeback season. I don't really consider last season his comeback season, but he has just been unbelievable this year. But Steph is really the MVP. I could spout off numbers all day, just backing up the fact that he has had an unbelievable season, and the only award that can truly recognize that is MVP, which he has earned for the second straight year, and deservedly so.
Right. Yeah, I don't have any difference there other than, an honorable mention goes to Russ for me, just because he's doing, I think David mentioned, and he had to leave us because he was having some technical difficulties, but he mentioned earlier Draymond doing things that only Oscar Robertson had done, and Russell Westbrook is also doing things that only Oscar Robertson has done. Again, that shows why Steph has to be the guy. unless, like you said, he misses 20 to 30 games. So Steph and then Kawhi shooting, he's, off and on leading the NBA in 3-point percentage and is the best defender in the league. So that brings us to Defensive Player of the Year. You said one of the Warriors. Oh, no, was that David who put that or you?
It was probably David, because for me, it's Kawhi, and I don't really have a Draymond. Obviously, is second runner up, but Kawhi is just ridiculous because he's the only guy in the league who actually slowed LeBron down at a decent pace.
Yeah, I mean, he can definitely. I don't know. It's absurd to watch him because nobody can play against him. Like Paul George is your third MVP candidate, and he put Paul George to shame in the game against the Pacers they had.
Totally.
Yeah, Paul George was completely shut down. I think he scored 10 points. I mean, he did not shoot well. So yeah, it would have to be Kawhi. Draymond is a very close second, but I got to give it to Kawhi because he's the closest thing. I mean, he is the only lockdown defender we have. I mean, Tony Allen has always been a good defender, but he's the only lockdown perimeter defender that we really have. That's a true lockdown guy.
Yeah. And moving on to most improved player, I would right off the bat say I'm going to be a little biased with this because I believe the two players that are most deserving of the award are Detroit Pistons, respectively Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, and I am a Pistons fan, so there's that. But with the transformation that Reggie Jackson has taken from being the awful, frankly, offensive player that he was on the Thunder, and Andre Drummond from the guy who we thought had potential playing alongside Greg Monroe to the guy who has totally proved the Pistons right in letting Greg Monroe go and keeping him as the centerpiece on the front line. I've been really impressed with both of them. Reggie himself is playing really unbelievable and playing at a pace that I didn't think he was capable of. He's a legit scoring threat now and deservedly a front runner for the most improved player award. And Drummond has really, really, really just overshadowed the departure of Greg Monroe and made Pistons fans like myself not miss him at all. The one black sheep in his arsenal of skills is obviously his free throw shooting, which is awful. But other than that, him and Reggie Jackson are two of the front runners in my opinion, along with CJ McCollum.
Yeah, I mean, how weird is that transformation for Jackson? People thought that was a stupid move by Detroit, but Stan Van, I don't know if it's him or if Reggie Jackson is just working his butt off, but he's turned into an excellent player. He's fun to watch. The Pistons are a really good team. I'm excited for you as a Pistons fan and just for the Pistons, but I have to give it to CJ McCollum. Last year he was averaging 6.8 points per game, and now he's averaging 21, 4 and 4, roughly. That's an insane jump.
Yeah.
He's obviously doubled his minutes. They've completely rolled over the lineup, and so he's going to play more as it is. But I was just seeing that transformation from a guy who was really an afterthought. You would just never think of CJ McCollum at all, and now all of a sudden, I mean, he was a borderline all-star, I would imagine. I think in any other season without so many talented guards, maybe or any other time, I guess, in the NBA, he might be an all-star. But I would have to give it to him right now.
Yeah, and that's probably who should win it, unbiasedly, besides, you and I as Knicks and Pistons fans respectively. Did you have anything else before we shut the NBA All-Star Pod mid-season podcast / down?
Yeah, where's Lance Thomas on these All-Star ballots, man?
I have no.
Nick's backup small forward, baby. No, man, I don't have anything else. I hate that we had to send David off. I think he agreed with us on most takes. He did say, he said, Steph for MVP, no doubt. We said defensive player, one of the Warriors, probably. I mean, he would probably say Draymond. And then most improved, he agreed with the Reggie Jackson sentiment from you. So definitely. I hate that we had to send him off, but
it's that blizzard. It's the East Coast blizzard killing us, killing our Wi-Fi.
Anyways, from us here at the Unprofessionals, thank you for listening. Those of you who do listen, we appreciate it. Once again, we're brought to you unofficially by the mobile hop-in off of Trickham Road and North Arnold Mill. And this is Nathan, and this is Josh, and we are saying goodbye to you. Thank you.